Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of the wildest corporate stories I've seen in a while. We're talking about how a pretty small mining company decided to bet the farm on crypto and basically transformed itself overnight.
All right, let's just kick things off with a number that'll make your head spin. $13.5 billion. I mean, that is just a massive, massive figure, no matter how you slice it.
So, what if I told you that's the value of the crypto treasury for one company, a company called BMNR? And get this, they just became the world's largest corporate holder of Ethereum, and they did it in just a few weeks. It's insane. So how on earth did they pull this off? Let's get into it.
Okay, so first up, we've got to look at the absolutely shocking pivot BMNR made. Seriously, they went from being this small fry Bitcoin miner to, well, an absolute king in the Ethereum world.
Just think about how fast this all happened. We're talking just 12 weeks ago, BMNR was in a totally different business. Their whole operation was about mining Bitcoin, and honestly, they were operating on a scale that was kind of tiny compared to what they are now.
So right at the beginning of this crazy journey, things were pretty modest. For every single share of their stock, there was only about $4 worth of Ethereum behind it. Nothing to write home about, right?
But then, things got wild. In just 8 weeks, that number just exploded. It went all the way up to $39 per share.
Yeah, that's a nearly 10x increase. The company just went on this insane buying spree, sucking up Ethereum like there was no tomorrow. And that, of course, leads us to the big question. Why? Why this sudden all-or-nothing jump into Ethereum? Okay, to really get the why behind all this, we need to zoom out a bit. There's this huge problem that big institutional money, we're talking the giant funds, faces when they try to get into crypto.
And you might be sitting there thinking, well, why don't they just buy Ethereum directly? It's a great question, right? If these huge investment firms want a piece of the Ethereum action, why bother with a middleman like BMNR? Why not just buy the crypto?
Well, the answer lies in this clever little structure called a Digital Asset Trust, or a DAT for short. Think of it like this. It's a company that holds the digital assets for you, so investors can buy stock in that company instead of dealing with the crypto directly. And for big institutions, this is an absolute game changer.
And this right here is the whole reason this strategy exists. You've got these massive firms that are literally not allowed to buy crypto tokens directly. It's against their own rules, their mandates. They have to own traditional corporate stock. So BMNR steps in. By becoming a DAT, they create this perfectly legal, regulated bridge for all that institutional cash to flow into the crypto market. They're solving a massive access problem. All right, so let's look at how this all plays out when you're in a competitive market. BMNR knew they had to move fast. In this game, speed is everything, and they were working off a pretty specific theory about how this market works. And wow, this chart just shows you how incredibly well it worked. You've got BMNR and MicroStrategy just completely dominating the trading volume. We're talking 86% of it. This is a textbook winner-takes-most situation. They're the giants, and everybody else is just left fighting for the crumbs. See, for these big institutional players, there's one word that is absolutely critical: liquidity. That's just a fancy way of saying they need to be able to buy and sell enormous amounts of stock without causing the price to go haywire. High trading volume means high liquidity, and that makes BMNR the obvious go-to choice.
Now, it's important to remember, BMNR's strategy isn't happening in a vacuum. They're tapping into a much bigger trend here. We're seeing Wall Street finally start to get comfortable with blockchain technology. And a big reason for that is stablecoins, which, as one analyst put it, are kind of like the ChatGPT moment for crypto. They're the breakout hit.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This is where the story takes a turn. Because even if you have the most brilliant, perfectly executed strategy in the world, you still have to deal with the market. And the market can be brutal. So even though the company nailed its strategy, they accumulated the assets, they solved a huge problem for the big guys, they dominated trading volume, check, their stock chart is telling a completely different story right now, and it's not a great one.
If you actually look at the technicals, you start to see some red flags. The stock is trading below key levels. A lot of the momentum indicators are pointing down, and you've got all this geopolitical uncertainty that's shaking up the whole market. So the bottom line is, even with a great long-term plan, the stock itself is really struggling against some major headwinds right now.
And this really brings us to the core tension of this whole thing, right? It's this massive collision between really smart long-term vision and the complete chaos of short-term market craziness. You know, a lot of analysts were calling for 2025 to be the year for a huge crypto boom. But then some major world events, especially stuff that happened back in October, just completely threw a wrench in those plans. So now the hope has shifted. The thinking is that the boom isn't canceled, it's just been pushed back to 2026. And that's the tricky, uncertain water BMNR is trying to navigate.
So what's the big prize they're keeping their eyes on? What's the whole point of this long-term bet? It comes down to the absolutely mind-blowing efficiency of crypto-native finance. Just look at these numbers. Tether, which is a crypto company, pulls in something like $1.7 billion per employee. Compare that to a traditional finance giant like JP Morgan. They're at about $2.8 million per employee. The difference is it's staggering. And really, that's the whole thesis right there. That's the big takeaway. The bet is that this kind of fundamental, game-changing efficiency is the future of finance. The idea is that eventually it has to win. It doesn't matter what the market is doing today or tomorrow, that underlying power is just too great to ignore.
So that leaves us with the billion-dollar question, not just for BMNR, but really for this whole corner of the crypto world. Is this a truly visionary bet on what finance will look like in the future? Or is it just a really, really dangerous gamble? I guess we'll all just have to wait and see if that delayed boom ever shows up.